Perfect. Thanks. So, Jai Hind everyone, and welcome to July month meeting. Hope everyone is safe and good in health. Before we start today's meeting, I have a very important announcement to share. Pandit Ji Sri Dheeraj Bhai Mehta, who passed away peacefully at the age of 87 on July 10th. Hundreds of learned many Jain subjects from him over a span of 30 years. He visited our centers approximately 15 to 20 years and conducted several debates and camps. He wrote about 40 plus 45 books, and he has been teaching Sadhu Sadhviji as well. He was like Google, or you can say Wikipedia, for Jain Tattva, Jain principles. Personally, I'm not fortunate to have his blessing or teaching, but when I talk to many of our members about Panditji, everybody has very high respect for him and felt like Panditji has made significant contribution in their life. Let's hear from few members more about Panditji. So let me ask Praveen uncle first, and then I'll ask Ramanik uncle to, say a few words about him. So what?
Jai Jinendra, everybody. The Panditji, I met him first time in 1989 in Ahmedabad. And he was teaching Tattva Sutra. Every evening, he would come to this Ambavadi Upasraya, and many adults will get together. And since I was in India, I met him. And the way he was explaining everything, it was very, very impressive to me. So I thought, if I can request him to come to USA, okay, and do this kind of the things, we will be significantly benefited. And remember, this is 1989 we're talking. So I talked to Panditji, and I asked them, Panditji, would you come to USA? We will take care of everything. All right. In India, most of the scholars they really die to come to USA if somebody is taking care of everything and do that. But Panditji said, no, I cannot come to USA, because if I come to USA, I have to at least stay minimum 3 months. Then and then it's going to be worthwhile. I cannot come for a week or 2 or 3 weeks and come back. And I have all my setup here. I teach in the morning. I teach at night to Sravaks, in the morning to Sadhu Sadhvis. And the daytime, I have my business. And he was a cloth merchant. Okay, Ratanpur. That is the kind of the areas now he's done. So he initially he said no. And then he also said, Amara dhutiya wala lutia kaam nahi. And આ બધી વસ્તુ મારા માટે બહુ કહેવાય એને. પણ એમણે જ્યારે કાપડનો બિઝનેસ કર્યો, because my brother has a કાપડ business, I thought he might know Panditji. So I asked him, do you know Panditji? અને આ રીતે તો કે yes, his shop is right above, my shop is right above him. His shop in the market. And I said, well, I'm trying to bring him to USA. એમણે કહ્યું કે please take that one. Please do that one. પંડિતજીને તમે લઈ જાઓ, કારણ કે અહીંયા તો પુષ્કળ દેવું છે એમના માથે. અને આ બધા કાપડિયાને એકબીજાની બધાની ખબર પડે. Anyway, I went to his home in Ahmedabad. I talked to him at length. He said, give me 1 year. And હું જોઉં છું કે મારું બધું કેવું સેટઅપ છે, બધું વાઉન્ડ અપ કરી શકું, તો I will try. 1 વર્ષ ગયું, પછી કહ્યું પંડિતજીને. એટલે પંડિતજી ફાઇનલી એગ્રીડ કે ભાઈ મને ઓછામાં ઓછો કેટલો સમય મારે ત્યાં આવવું જોઈએ. મેં કહ્યું તમે 3 મહિના આવો, તમારું બધી વસ્તુની જવાબદારી મારા હાથમાં છે. અને તમે અહીંથી ત્રણ મહિના પછી એટલીસ્ટ તમારા, અને ધીસ ઇઝ 89, તમારા હાથમાં એટલીસ્ટ 3 થી 4 લાખ રૂપિયા હશે. મિનિમમ 3 લાખ તમને આપીશું. ઓકે, બાકીની બધી જવાબદારી મારી. એ તૈયાર થઈ ગયા પછી મારા ભત્રીજાની સાથે બધું વિસા માટે બધું મોકલ્યું. સ્પોન્સરશિપ, પર્સનલ ગેરંટી, સ્પોન્સરશિપ બધું મેં આપ્યું. અને જૈન સેન્ટર ઓફ નોર્થ કેરોલાઇના સ્પોન્સર લેટર તૈયાર કરી અને આપણા સેન્ટરે એમને વિસા માટેના જે સ્પોન્સરશિપ પેપર જોઈએ, ક્યાં જવાના છે, શું કરવાના છે, શું રહેવાના છે, એ બધી વસ્તુની ડિટેલ બધી મોકલી આપી જોડે. અને મારો ભત્રીજો એમની સાથે જઈ વિસા લઈ આવ્યો અને પંડિતજી અહીંયા આવ્યા. અને અહીંયા આવે જ્યારે ન્યુયોર્કમાં ઉતર્યા, ફર્સ્ટ પ્રોગ્રામ જ્યારે ઓર્ગેનાઇઝ કર્યો, I organized this program for 10 years, first 10 years, 9 years actually, okay, up to 2091 માં એ આવ્યા. 91 માં આવી 9 વર્ષ સુધી જવાબદારી લીધી. પછી year 2000 I became a chairperson of Jaina Education Committee. At that time I told Panditji, now I'm going to find somebody who will take care of it. And I found Manibhai Mehta from Los Angeles, and I told him that please guide Panditji all the program બાબતમાં. પંડિતજી પોતે પોતાના પ્રોગ્રામ પછી તો કરી લેતા હતા. એ રીતે એમણે કર્યું અને કુલ 25 વર્ષ આવ્યા. 2015માં જ્યારે આવ્યા છેલ્લા, ત્યારે મેં કહ્યું પંડિતજી હવે તમારી ઉંમર થઈ છે, અહીંયા જો તમને કંઈક માંદા પડશો ને તો જે વ્યક્તિને ત્યાં હશો એને તમે બહુ જવાબદારીમાં મૂકી દેશો. ઓકે, અને સેન્ટરને પણ બહુ રાખ્યો.
So, Uncle, just to, considering the duration of the meeting and all, so if you can, maybe, we have Ramanik Uncle also going after you.
Right. So anyway, finally, but during these 25 years, in the spare time, we requested you write the books, we will print it for you. Okay, and he started writing the books, question, answer, everything. What he did, because he is not like something ઉપદેશના ગ્રંથો નથી લખતા. એમને બધા આપણા આગમના ગ્રંથો અને જૂના ગ્રંથો એને સારી રીતે વિવેચન કર્યું ગુજરાતીમાં. એમના ગ્રંથોનું જો થોડુંક લિસ્ટ તમને આપું તો કર્મ ગ્રંથ 6 ભાગ, ઓકે, કંપૈડી, ગંધર્વાદ, દેવચંદ 24, આપણા બધા યોગના ગ્રંથો, યોગ વિંસિકા, યોગ શતક, યોગ દ્રષ્ટિ સમુચ્ચય, આ બધા જે ગ્રંથો યોગના પણ, જે આમ કહીએ તો જૈન સમાજમાંથી ભૂલાઈ ગયું છે. લોકોને તો એમ જ છે કે જૈન ધર્મમાં યોગ વિશે કઈ છે જ નથી, ધ્યાન અને યોગ વિશે નથી. આપણે બસ ક્રિયાકાંડને જ ધર્મ માની બેઠા છે. પંડિતજીએ આ બધા ગ્રંથોને ઉકેલી. એમનો એક જ વસ્તુ રહી હતી પંડિતજીને, મને કે ગમે તે હોય પણ આ આખો સમાજ જુદે રસ્તે જઈ રહ્યો છે. એનીવે એ બધા ગ્રંથો એમણે કર્યા. every book he has is in our e-library website. We are compiling the whole history. અને કેટલા સેન્ટરમાં ગયા, ક્યાં ગયા, શું કર્યું, કોના અનુભવો બધા, એ બધાની આખી બુક આઈ એમ કમ્પાઇલિંગ ઇટ. બધી મટીરિયલ ભેગું કરી put it, and no, we are going to be publishing maybe next 2-3 months. It is going to take a lot of time just to compile everything and put it in the picture, so that way this memory will last long. Okay, ek vastu and books we will be having it, make it available this way. It will last long. There are many things happen in India after he started coming over here. Panditji got good recognition in India, and Maharaj Sahib also liked, because all these granths, not many people write these things, like Jambu Vijayji and Sri Chandra Suri. There are few acharyas right now just doing that kind of the work, but not many. All others are just Updeshta Grantha. Okay, it is all needed, but something like this done properly. Anyway, સો ધીઝ આર ધ એમનું જે યોગદાન છે અમેરિકા માટે પંડિતજીનું એ ઘણું જ ઉત્તમ છે. આટલો બધો ધર્મ એમને જે આપણને પ્રમાણ્યો અને એમની પણ લાઈફ બરાબર સુધરી ગઈ અહીંયા આવ્યા પછી પણ. ઓકે, અત્યારે પંડિતજીને માટે અને એના ફેમિલી માટે બધા છોકરાઓ પણ સેટ થયા. અમદાવાદથી પછી એ સુરત મૂવ થઈ ગયા અને સુરતમાં એમના બધા બ્રધર સિસ્ટર ને બધા છે ત્યાં એમની સાથે આ એમના છોકરાઓ પણ સેટ થઈ ગયા અને એ રીતે પંડિતજીના માટે ઘણું જ ઉત્તમ બન્યો.
Sure.
એટલે unless anybody has any questions or anything to add it, okay, with Panditji.
I will ask, Ramanik uncle to add, in unmute, and Ramanik uncle, if you want to share something.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Jai Jinendra. પંડિતજી ધીરુભાઈ જે મારા હું ગુરુ માનું છું. ભગવાન મહાવીર અને મારા માતા પિતા બાદ કરતા મારી જિંદગીમાં જો સૌથી મોટો ફાળો આપ્યો હોય તો ધીરુભાઈ. હું ધીરુભાઈની લાઈફ સ્ટોરી કે બીજી વાત નથી કરવા માંગતો. હું 87 વર્ષથી જૈન સેન્ટર સ્ટડી સેન્ટર ઓફ નોર્થ કેરોલિના મેમ્બર બન્યો છું અને મારી લાઈફ અને મારા કુટુંબ પર જૈન સ્ટડી સેન્ટર ઓફ નોર્થ કેરોલિનાનો મોટામાં મોટો ઉપકાર હોય તો ધીરુભાઈ છે. ધીરુભાઈને હું છેલ્લા લગભગ 93-92 થી એમની પાસે હું ઘણું શીખ્યો છું. જ્યારે જે મારી થોડી ઘણી પણ સમજ આવી છે હું કોન્ટ્રીબ્યુટ ટુ ધીરુભાઈ. એ જેને આપણે કહીએ છીએ ચત્તારીમાં જે ગુરુ આવે છે સતદેવ સદગુરુ સદધર્મ, તો મારી દ્રષ્ટિએ અત્યારે ભગવાન મહાવીર છે નહીં, અત્યારે એવા કોઈ ગુરુજનો છે નહીં, પણ ધીરુભાઈએ જે એમની સરળ ભાષામાં જેની એની સમજમાં જે આપણને નહીં પણ જૈન સ્ટડી સેન્ટર એટલાને નહીં આખા અમેરિકામાં 25 વર્ષ આવી અને જે એમને કોન્ટ્રીબ્યુશન આપ્યું છે એ ભલે ભગવાન મહાવીરે ઉપદેશ આપ્યો, ભલે આગમો ગણધરોએ આગમો રચ્યા, ભલે પંડિતો સ્કોલરો આચાર્યો ગ્રંથો રચ્યા, આપણા માટે ઘણું કોન્ટ્રીબ્યુશન કર્યું. પણ આપણને મારી દ્રષ્ટિએ મારા માટે મને જે કોઈ સમજ આપી હોય તો ધીરુભાઈ છે. અને અત્યારે છેલ્લે હું મળ્યો તો હું એક વસ્તુ કહું કે હું મારી જિંદગીમાં એક જ વ્યક્તિને ચરણ સ્પર્શ કરું છું, એ ધીરુભાઈ છે. અને એમના ગ્રંથો પ્રવીણભાઈએ વાત કરી, એમના ગ્રંથો એમણે જે ગ્રંથો જે સાદી ભાષામાં આ એક ડિફિકલ્ટ ગ્રંથોને એમણે જે સાદી ભાષામાં આપણને આપ્યા છે એની કોઈ સરખામણી થઈ શકે નહીં. અત્યારે પણ અમે લગભગ એમના બધા ગ્રંથો સ્વાધ્યાયમાં ઉપયોગ કરીએ છીએ. અત્યારે પણ યોગ દ્રષ્ટિ સમુચય ઉપર જ સ્વાધ્યાય કરીએ છીએ અને દર વખતે જ્યારે વિવેચન હોય ત્યારે મને સમજ જ પડે કે આ શબ્દો ધીરુભાઈના છે, આ વિવેચન ધારુભાઈનો છે. એટલે હંમેશા એમના શબ્દો મને હંમેશા યાદ રહે છે. શું બેઠું સમજ પડી, બરાબર પડી, આ બધા એમના શબ્દો હજી મારા સામે યાદ આવે છે. અને ઉપરાંત એ ધીરુભાઈ અને હું અમારું એક બીજું કનેક્શન હતું, બને બનાસકાંઠાના હતા. એટલે મને હંમેશા એમ જ કે ડોક્ટર સાહેબ આપણે તો આપણા વાળા છે. અને ધીરુભાઈ ને જોઈ અને મારા ફાધર ની યાદ કરે એક્ઝેક્ટ સેમ વે. એટલે મારું એક ઈચ્છા, મારી પર્સનલ ઈચ્છા છે કે જૈન સ્ટડી સેન્ટર ઓફ નોર્થ કેરોલિના જે 40 વર્ષનો જે ગ્રંથ કે જે બહાર પાડવાના છે, મારી દ્રષ્ટિએ આ તો મારો પર્સનલ ઈચ્છા છે, હું કોઈ કમિટીને કઈ કહેતો નથી, પણ એ એક ધીરુભાઈ ને ડેડિકેટ કરે, જેને જૈન ભલે જૈન સ્ટડી સેન્ટર ઓફ નોર્થ કેરોલિના ઉપર ઘણાના ઉપકારો છે, કૃપાનુના છે, ગુરુજીના છે, ઘણાના ઉપકારો છે. પણ મારી દ્રષ્ટિએ પર્સનલી બોલું છું કે જે ધીરુભાઈનો જૈન સ્ટડી સેન્ટર ઓફ નોર્થ કેરોલિના ઉપર ઉપકાર છે ને ક્યારે ભૂલાશે નહીં. તો આ જો ગ્રંથ એમને એક ડેડિકેટેડ કરવો એ મારી ઈચ્છા છે.
Sure, sure. So that's definitely a good thought, and we are thinking about it, and we'll definitely, see if we can do that. So thank you, Ramanik uncle. Thank you, Praveen uncle, for sharing a lot of good stories about him.
Ritesh, if I can speak for a minute. Ritesh, if I can speak for a minute about Dhirubhai.
Actually,
Maybe
Rajan
less
bhai,
than
we are already, 20 minutes over. So I might need to, give you chance at the end. So let me, move forward with the
Okay.
agenda. Yeah.
Just quickly, I endorse Jota's suggestion on dedicating the souvenir, but I'll continue at the end. Yes.
Sure. So, આપણે બધા પ્રાર્થના કરીએ કે એમનો આત્મા જલ્દીથી મોક્ષ પામે અને let's have a moment of silence for him. All right, so before we begin today's meeting, let me walk through the agenda. So first we'll begin Navkar Mantra and Stavans. So today we have Badalbhai and Hinaben Mehta who are going to lead that for us. Then we have yoga session from Jyotiben. Then we have discourse part 2 from Amit Bhai, which is continuing from the last meeting. And after that, we have few important announcements to share with the members. And finally, we have our Sagaram Sutra. So with that, let me hand over to Badal Bhai and Hina. So over to you, Badal Bhai.
Okay. Thank you, Ritesh. Jai Jindra, everyone.
Jai Jindra, everyone.
Om Namo Arihantaram. Om Namo Siddharam. Om Namo Aryayanam. Om Namo Uvajjayanam. Namo loe savasahunam. Eso panchanamokaro. Sava pava panasano. Mangalanam cha sauvesim. Padamam havai mangalam. Padamam havai mangalam. Next we'll do Mangal part. Chattari Mangalam. Arihanta Mangalam. Siddha Mangalam. Sahu Mangalam. Kevali Pannato Dhammo Mangalam.
Chattari Loguttama. Arihanta Loguttama. Siddha Loguttama. Sahu Loguttama. Kevali Pannato Dhammo Loguttama.
Chattari Sharanam Pavajjami. Arihante Sharanam Pavajjami. Siddhe Sharanam Pavajjami. Sahu Sharanam Pavajjami. Kevali Pannato Dhammo Sharanam Pavajjami. Next we'll do Samro Mantra. Samro Mantra Balo Navakar Eche Chauda Puravano Sar. Ena Mahimano Nahi Par Eno Artha Anantaya Par.
Sukhma samaro dukhma samaro samaro divasane raat. Jivata samaro marata samaro સમરો સૌ સંગાત સમરો મંત્ર ભલો નવકાર એ છે 14 પુરવનો સાર
એના
મહિમાનો નહીં પાર એનો અર્થ અનંત અપાર
યોગી સમરે ભોગી સમરે સમરે રાજા રંગ દેવો સમરે દાનવ સમરે સમરે સૌની શંક
સમરો મંત્ર ભલો નવકાર એ છે 14 પુરવનો સાર એના મહિમાનો નહીં પાર એનો
અર્થ અનંત અપાર
68 અક્ષર એના જાણો 68 તીર્થ સાર 8 સંપદા થી પરમાણો 8 સિદ્ધિ દાતાર સમરો મંત્ર ભલો નવકાર એ છે 14 પુરવનો સાર એના મહિમાનો નહીં પાર એનો અર્થ અનંત અપાર
નવ પદ એના નવ નિધિ આપે
ભવ ભવના દુઃખ કાપે
વીર વચન થી હૃદય સ્થાપે
પરમાત્મ પદ આપે સમરો મંત્ર ભલો નવકાર એ 14 પુરવનો સાર એના મહિમાનો નહીં પાર એનો અર્થ અનંત અપાર
નેક્સ્ટ વિલ ડુ મૈત્રી ભાવનો મૈત્રી ભાવનો પવિત્ર ઝરણો મુજ હૈયામાં વયા કરે શુભ થાઓ આ સકળ વિશ્વનું એવી ભાવના નિત્ય રહે એવી ભાવના નિત્ય રહે ગુણથી ભરેલા ગુણીજન દેખી હૈયું મારું નૃત્ય કરે હૈયું મારું નૃત્ય કરે એ સંતોના ચરણ કમળમાં મુજ જીવનનો અર્ધ રહે દીન ક્રૂર ને ધર્મ વિહોણા દેખી દિલમાં દર્દ રહે કરુણા ભીની આંખોમાંથી અશ્રુનો શુભ સ્રોત વહે અશ્રુનો શુભ સ્રોત વહે માર્ગ ભૂલેલા જીવન પથિકને માર્ગ ચીંધવા ઉભો રહું કરે ઉપેક્ષા એ માર્ગની તો એ સમતા ચિત્ત ધરું વીર પ્રભુની ધર્મ ભાવના હૈયે સૌ માનવ લાવે વેર ઝેર ના પાપ તજીને મંગળ ગીતો એ ગાવે પ્રભુ મંગળ ગીતો એ ગાવે મૈત્રી ભાવનું પવિત્ર ઝરણું મુજ હૈયામાં વયા કરે શુભ થાઓ આ સકળ વિશ્વનું એવી ભાવના નિત્ય રહે એવી ભાવના નિત્ય રહે
નેક્સ્ટ ઇઝ બહુ પુણ્ય કેરા બહુ પુણ્ય કેરા પૂંજથી શુભ દેહ માનવનો મળ્યો તો એ અરે ભવચક્રનો આટો નહીં એ કે ટળ્યો.
સુખ પ્રાપ્ત કરતા સુખ ટળે છે, લેશ એ લક્ષે લહો, ક્ષણ ક્ષણ ભયંકર ભાવ મરણે, કા અહોરાચી રહો.
લક્ષ્મી અને અધિકાર વધતા શું વધ્યું તે તો કહો. શું કુટુંબ કે પરિવારથી વધવા પણ એ નયગ્રહો.
વધવાપણું સંસારનું નર દેહને હા બીજવો, એનો વિચાર નહીં અહો, એક પળ તમને હો.
નિર્દોષ સુખ નિર્દોષ આનંદ જો ગમે ત્યાંથી ભલે, એ દિવ્ય શક્તિ માન જેથી જંજીરેથી નીકળે.
પર વસ્તુમાં નહીં મૂંઝવો, એ નિદયા મુજને રહી, એ ત્યાગવા સિદ્ધાંત કે પશ્ચાત દુઃખ તે સુખ નહીં.
હું કોણ છું ક્યાંથી થયો શું સ્વરૂપ છે મારું ખરું. કોના સંબંધે વળગણા છે રાખું કે એ પરહરું.
એના વિચાર વિવેક પૂર્વક શાંત ભાવે જો કર્યા, તો સર્વ આત્મિક જ્ઞાનના સિદ્ધાંત તત્વ અનુભવ્યા.
તે પ્રાપ્ત કરવા વચન કોનું સત્ય કેવળ માનવું. નિર્દોષ નરનું કથન માનો તેહ જેણે અનુભવ્યું.
રે આત્મ તારો શીઘ્ર એને ઓળખો, સર્વાત્મમાં સમદ્રષ્ટિ દો આ વચનને હૃદયે લખો. સર્વાત્મમાં સમદ્રષ્ટિ દો આ વચનને હૃદયે લખો. જય જયેન્દ્ર. બેક ટુ યુ રીતેશ.
Thank you, Badalbhai. Thank you, Hinaben. So now moving to next session quickly to improve our flexibility, concentration, strength in this difficult time. So that is yoga by Jyotiben. So what do you, Jyotiben?
So how much time do we have, Ritesh?
We have 20 minutes.
20?
Yeah.
Okay. So Jai Jirendra, everybody. If you are sitting in a couch, I would highly recommend that you grab a chair quickly for our session. So if both of you are doing, bring 2 chairs and try not to do the practice sitting in the couch. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So are you ready to do it? Everybody's ready. Looks like some of you don't want to grab the chair, but that's fine. So listen to your body, whatever we are doing today, be mindful. Let's do maybe 5 breaths to find ourselves grounding. So planting your feet on the floor. And if you're sitting on the couch, make sure you are sitting at the front edge of the couch. That way your feet are planted and your spine is nice, erect. Your hands are face down on your lap. Closing your eyes and taking 5 to 6 deep breaths. And simply observing where do you feel your breath in your body. For some, you may feel it around your chest. For some, you may feel around your abdomen. So simply observing and paying attention. And now 2 more deeper breaths than what you have been taking. And opening your eyes whenever you feel ready. From here, we'll do a variation of sun salutation. So seated chair variation. So relax your arms beside your body. Breathing in, lifting your arms up. Breathing out, sweeping your arms down. So be mindful of your neighbors and give enough distance between each other. Breathing in, lifting your arms up. Breathing out, bring your arms in front and place it on your lap. Breathing in, slightly leaning forward, lifting up through your chest. Breathing out, folding down. Breathing in again, drag your hands on your legs, bring it back on your lap and lift up through your chest, slightly leaning forward. Breathing out, again going down. So go all the way down, relax your hands down on the floor. And now breathing in, lifting your right arm up, left hand stays down as far as you can lift up. Breathing out, sweep that right arm down. Breathing in, lifting your left arm up. Breathing out, sweeping that arm down. Breathing in, lifting all the way up as you sweep both your arms from the side. And breathing out, hands together towards your heart. We'll repeat this. Breathing in, lifting your arms from the side as far as you can bring it up. Breathing out, sweeping it out to the side. Breathing in, sweeping again. Breathing out, sweep it from front on your lap. Breathing in, slightly leaning forward as if you are lifting up your chest. I'm going to sweep back, slightly go back, so my head is cutting off. And then breathing out, folding down. Breathing in again, lifting all the way up. Slightly keep yourself lean forward. Breathing out, folding down. Breathing in, lifting your right arm up as far as you can take it. Breathing out, sweeping the arm down. Breathing in, your other arm goes up. Breathing out, coming down. Breathing in, sweeping both your arms from the side. And breathing out, hands together towards your heart. All right, so now let's do something standing. But before we come into the standing, I'm going to show you 2 variations because as I was noticing that we have a variety of population in our meeting. So just being mindful that listen to your body. I'm going to show you 2 variations. One is for the chair and one is for the standing. So everybody's happy. So the next we are doing is the breathing technique. And the way you do it is you lift your arms, breathing in, sweeping your arms out to the side. So you sweep, you breathe in 1/3, then breathe in 2/3, and breathe in all the way, and then breathing out, sweep your arms forward and breathe out. So I'm going to show you how you're supposed to breathe. So hopefully you can listen to me. So breathing in 1/3, breathing in 2/3, breathing in fully and breathing out. You can make the sound from your mouth as you are breathing out. And so let go of your body. Okay. So breathing in 1/3, breathing in 2/3, Breathing in fully and breathing out. So 1/3, 2/3, fully. Same thing we can do standing. So those who feel like doing the standing variation, those who feel like doing the sitting variation. So standing is breathing in 1/3, breathing in 2/3, breathing in fully and breathe in. Going slow. Continue. I see some of you have just paused. See if you can continue. Two more. And coming to your standing, or feel free to go back sitting in your chair. So from here, just take a moment and see how you feel, how your breath is. Your heart must be pounding. Bring your one hand on your chest and see if you feel your heart throbbing. Bring the other hand on your abdomen.
બંધ થઈ ગયું છે. અરુણભાઈ.
So the hand which is on your chest, see if you can gently press to calm and pacify your chest. Then you will start to feel everything around your abdomen more. One more breath like that. Nice. And then relax your arms. Next, keep your left leg bent and extend your right leg in front. So again, I'll have to adjust. So extending your right leg in front, your left leg is bent. Bring both your hands on your left thigh. And now you are stretching your right leg, so your right heel is going away from you, and you want to lean slightly forward. So your left knee is above your left ankle. Your right heel is away from you. Keep your right leg straight. Bring both your hands on your left thigh and leaning forward. The right toes are pointing up towards the ceiling. So do you feel that stretch and lengthening in your right leg muscles, the back of your leg? Yes. So see if you can push away your heel, right heel away from you as much as you can as you keep yourself lean forward. Making sure you're leaning from your hip joints and not rounding from your waistline. Stay 3 more breaths here. Keep yourself lean forward. Your right heel is away from you. Stretch as much as you can. And then on your next inhalation, lift yourself up and drag your right foot back towards you. Let's do it on the other side. So both your hands comes on your right thigh and extend your left leg straight. So your left heel is down on the floor, rest of the foot is up, toes are pointing up. Slightly, so breathing in, lift up through your chest, and breathing out, slightly leaning forward. and then continue to do your breathing. But each time you are breathing out, you are lengthening your left leg, your left heel is going away from you. See how much can you stretch that. Each time breathing out, further your left heel is going away from you. One more breath. On your next in-breath, lift yourself up and drag your heel back down. Lifting your right leg and bring it right ankle on top of your left thigh. And now hold the chair. So make sure that you are slightly sitting forward, holding the chair, and now leaning forward. The moment you lean forward, you will feel a lot of stretch on your right hip and the right side of your leg muscles. So listen to your body and see how much you want to lean forward. Again, without rounding from your waistline, keep your spine lengthened and lean forward. If you want to go further, deeper, bring both your hands, arms on your left shin. That way you will be feeling a lot of stretch in the back muscles along with your right hip muscle. Continue to stay there for another 3 to 4 breaths, making sure that you are keeping your head, neck in line with your spine. You're not rounding from your upper back or middle back. Keep it lengthened. One more breath. And then on your next in-breath, lift yourself up. And slowly bring your right leg down. Just take a moment and see how you feel on your right side compared to your left. Onto the other side. So bring your left ankle on top of your right. Again, hold the chair. And then bending from your hip joints and not from your waistline. Breathing out, leaning forward. Again, if you want to go deeper, bring both your hands on your right shin. And as you lean forward, again, a lot of stretches, lengthening happening around your left hip. Also towards your lower back, middle back, you feel that lengthening and stretch. Listen to your body, go at your own pace. Two more breaths here. On your next in-breath, slowly lift yourself up. And then bring your left leg down. For those who sometimes feel like bringing some upper body stretches, because we sometimes end up sitting most of the time at work, at home, but doing work or other things. Just maybe bring some upper body movement. So as if you are jogging, sitting in the chair, arms going elbows, forward, forward, forward. Keep your elbows bent. So that way you get some upper body and upper back movement. Nice. Slowing down. And see now if you can just hold your hands here and now lifting your leg up. You can bring arm and leg. That way there is no excuse that it was raining outside or it was too hot, I could not go out for my walk or jog or run. Giving you all the options which you can do right at your home, comfort of your home, sitting too in the chair. Nice. Slowing down, but continue. And then bring your hands back on your lap or on your thighs. Observe your breathing. Feel how your breath is right now. You may feel some dryness in your mouth. Your heart is pounding. Feel all the sensations right now you are going through in your body. Some vibrations, or maybe tingling, throbbing. And now slightly come at the comfort of your sitting position, slightly leaning back. We have 2 more minutes, hopefully.
Right.
So again, when you slightly come into that relaxed position, your spine still needs to be erect. So support the back if you need to. Your hands are relaxed, palms facing down on your lap, on your thighs. Elbows are relaxed, shoulders are relaxed away from your ears. We'll do body scan. You're simply bringing your awareness there. You don't have to move any of your body parts. Awareness towards the top of your head. Shoulders. Hips. Knees. Ankles. You're breathing from tips of all your toes up to your hips. Awareness towards your navel center. Heart center. Chest center. Throat center. Forehead center. The top of your head. You are breathing as if your whole body is breathing. You're breathing from the top of your head to the tips of your fingers, to the tips of your toes. Breathing back up from the tips of your toes to the tips of your fingers, the top of your head. Staying here for 5 full breaths. I'm hoping that now you are breathing your way of breathing and your heart is now pretty much passive, your chest is passive. Take 2 more deeper breaths. Keeping your eyes still closed, but sweep your arms all the way from the side. Bring it all the way up. Breathing out, sweeping your arms down. And 1 more, sweeping your arms all the way up. And now bring both your hands towards the center of your heart into your prayer. And you bow down and acknowledge yourself for doing this practice together. Jai Jinendra, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jyoti, and always I want to thank you for being so flexible and available in such short time. So let's have a round of applause for Jyoti. So now moving to the next meeting, and today we have Amit Bhai Kodiwala, who is going to talk about Method of Ashtanga Yoga by Master Patanjali. So thank you. Let me ask Amit Bhai to begin. Amit Bhai, over to you. And Amit Bhai, you have 1 hour. You take.
Okay. Not much, so we'll see how it plays out. I have a few things to present. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, perfect. Okay. Jai Jinendra, everybody. Again, this is one more opportunity to stand in front of very, very smart people, very scholarly folks, people who have actually taught me many things, lots of things. And again, I'm still, still learning. I am no scholar by any imagination. Just learning through all the help that I've received from some of the elders in the community, some of the gurus, the scholars. So, as I make an attempt to explain some of this stuff that I've learned, and made a mistake or have misunderstood for myself, I would humbly ask that you let me know. And again, with the sincerity and humility, I would say, help me. And I absolutely have zero desire to make anybody uncomfortable with what's being presented here. So, Michami Dukram, we'll start with that. I'll ask for your forgiveness in advance. So let's start with a few Vandan. Again, Vandans બધા આપણી લાઈફમાં ઘણા બધા લોકો હોય છે. મારી લાઈફમાં બી ઘણા લોકોની ઇન્ફ્લુઅન્સ છે. પેરેન્ટ્સથી માંડીને કેટલા બધા જુદા જુદા members have actually directly contributed to what I've learned. And it's not so much the learning, it's not the shallow learning that I've achieved. Some of the names that you see here, they have actually put me into situations where I would actually introspect within myself and see how what they've said, what they've preached, what they've taught or written, how it has helped me change myself. Again, I have a long way to go. Before I say anything, mara humble one then to everybody. Praveen Uncle, again, I always revere him because after 20 years of living in this community, he was the one who actually opened the door for me, started to take me out of this ritualistic mechanical practices of Jainism and checking the box off to actually truly getting into the next level of depth and trying to open my mind. So always with a lot of reverence to Praveen Uncle and Aarti Auntie. So with that said, we talked about in the last presentation, the part 1, it talked about Sankhya philosophy. Now, this is in the 500 BC in a time frame where Jainism was very active. In about the same time, this was also one of the philosophies that actually started questioning this religion is just for a few people. The path to God can only come through some people. A lot of the ritualistic dominance that had prevailed. At that time, several of these different disciplines had come out, Jainism being one of them. Sankhya was also one of the philosophies. And it's very interesting to note that the actual book that's written, the Maharishi Patanjali's book on Yoga Sutra, it actually gave such foundational pieces that it drove home a lot of the points a lot of other yogis, other philosophies have been trying to practice and have been practicing. It just gave it a structure. So when you go through these books and you start looking at a comparison, parallels, when you draw whether it's Buddhism parallel you're trying to draw, or Jainism, or Ajivika, Charvikas, those different philosophies, you'd see same type of principles being presented in different order or different contexts, but ultimately it's all about trying to get to the universal consciousness. So just going into the Sankhya philosophy, which was the backdrop of Maharishi Patanjali's writing, without having a little bit of a background, it's harder to understand where some of these terminologies came, and what the whole overall thought processes may have been. So if you look at this diagram, the right-hand side, all the blue diagram, all the blue items are the stimuli. Call it hardware or software. This is what we get influenced by all the time. This is something happens to us. Call it, the entire yellow box is nature, but it's the Prakriti is what the term they use. These stimuli affect us. And then we have man. A lot of times, again, our Swadhyaya, we've spent a lot of hours talking about Chitta versus Man, Dravyaman, Bhav. All of those details that we've actually talked through. Man is where the analytical processes start. So if you think of anytime something happens, that starts from these blue boxes. We see some input come to us, and man immediately gets active. The analytical processes begin. And what man depends on is Buddhi as a project manager. Buddhi actually goes back and looks at these three boxes, Sattvic, Rajasic, and Tamasic, where it says, what memories do I have? What have I understood about this input, this situation, this stimuli? And then it makes decisions based on how many of these different memories we have collected. And we term sanskar athwa ahankar tarike vaprayala judi judi jagyaye. But Sattvic is the ahankar of goodness. This is the pure side of us. Rajasic is practical side of it. Practical, it has some level of darkness. This is where most of us live. Most all of us are not 100% tamasic. This is where all the dark side of our stuff comes. We definitely have dark side. We have to acknowledge that that's a fact. But Rajasic is where, મેં તો હજી એક જ વાર પહેર્યું હતું, મને બરોબર નહોતું લાગ્યું, but મને પેલું બીજું સારું મળી ગયું છે ને, પાછું લઈ લેશે. Right? It's completely practical, right within the laws, right within the guidelines. But then there's Sattvic person would say, I'm completely fine. I made a decision at one point, I'm completely happy with it. મને completely સંતોષ છે મારી પાસે જે છે. The Sattvic person would basically say, whatever I had, the situation is completely okay. I don't need to really, really push hard. But not a best example. Last time I talked about wanting to become a doctor. Such a noble thing to do. Human beings, at the deepest level, but you try to help them. That's such a positive thing to do. But then you try to achieve that degree by cheating the test and ignoring patients, only accepting patients that are rich. And you start losing this whole perspective that could have been completely Sattvic, and you play in the Rajasic space because laws allow me to do that. But so these combination of all of these memories become tools of trade for us. So when new situations, new stimuli presents itself, we actually pull from these memories, and that's all we do. So Buddhi, as a project manager, says, okay, well, in the last time I had this problem, I used these words to target, and they actually took my shirt back, and I got my money back. Oh, so I'm so smart. Let me just do that. The training here really, the power of free will, the effort that Sankhya philosophy would say that you have to make is think of yourself in a sort of a dungeon. This is a Meats analogy. You're in a dungeon that has darkness, but there are doorways that can open, and the final doorway is the Sattvic door. If you start moving from the darker side and you start opening these doors and you get to the actual the white light doorway, the external, the universal consciousness, you get out of these crazy memories that we operate from, that's where the doorway goes to the universal consciousness. So last stage, where the door is open, you can see the light, which is the Sattvic light, and you actually move to that light as you progress in your spiritual movement. So as you finish this, and as you actually clean up all these memories, chittani buddhi vritti or buddhi bandh thai jai. Chitta vritti actually are completely in control. The mind is in complete control, complete equanimity, complete stability. And that's the point where if you are flooded with Sattvic memories, you actually start opening the door to the divine, or Purusha, or the universal consciousness, or true reality, true nature of the soul. So in essence, it's not much different than how Jainism preaches our practices that we use in Jainism. But The idea is these terms are essential for. So sattvic really is the gunas of goodness. Rajas is the activity. We have passions, we have impulses, all of that stuff that's in the Rajasic. This is where we live most of the time. And then occasionally we actually get into this tamas. Now laziness, I would say laziness manifests itself in several different ways. And I can speak for me, for the longest time, having to do 3 hour, 4 hour pratikrama was completely fine. It wasn't done with any amount of intention of learning anything. It wasn't done with, it was only done with the idea, a couple of things about fear, about God. Hey, godly things carry, so something good will happen to you. It was one. Second was, oh, mom said so. If I go home, there'll be less complaints, less arguments. But laziness is one thing that we are all fettered by. We don't make the effort to understand why I spent those 4 hours that I did for so many years of my life to learn. So Thomas does, but the journey again, if you look at the diagram on the top right, it essentially says that our chitta, which is on the left-hand side bottom, we have waves all the time, but truly ourselves, when the waves start calming down, we can see through ourselves and we actually can experience the universal consciousness. So this is a bit of a catch up from the last time when we talked about the pieces. The other thing we talked about was we talked about the structure of Maharishi Patanjali's actual Yoga Sutra. It's divided in 4 parts. And the second part, where he actually gives the structure of the 8 steps: yam, niyam, asan, pranayam, pratyahar, dharana, dhyan, and samadhi. These are the 8 steps that he describes. And as we have been discussing this at the Swadhyaya for the last 2.5, 3 months, it has become very clear that there was immense amount of thought would have gone in or putting the order for these items, and how one may travel from yam all the way to samadhi, and how one becomes a foundational building block for the next piece. Another point I would make here is the top 4 line items that are here. Those are things that you consciously do. These are actual to-dos, if you want to call that. You can follow the principles of yam and niyam. You actually force yourself. You can actually do those things, put into practice. It may be hard. You have to learn, and you have to change the whole set of memories that we talked about, and you can do those. Is really the whole idea of asanas is you reduce that distraction. Are you consumed in thinking about your body so much? Can you sit still for 3.5 hours? And then pranayam is really where you actually realize that what differentiates me from anything else in the universe is I'm alive, and other things are not alive. There are lots of jivas and there are a lot of ajivas. And then that's where the migration starts into pratyahar. This is now you've done all the external things you can do and change, and you go towards the internal process, which is pratyahar, dharana, dhyan, and samadhi. So I'll go through each of these pieces. So, and I mentioned, and throughout this presentation, you'll see there are some parallels that we are drawing. Praveen Prasadacharya last time Vati mentioned, I mean, it's great to talk about Patanjali, but also bring out what Jainism says about some of this stuff. And this is one of my attempts. One of them, what I understand is Ramanik Uncle is running a parallel Swadhyaya on Yoga Drashti Samucchay, which is the Jainism version, and Jainism, very, very powerful book, scripture that's written by Acharya Hariputra Suri. But the parallel between the two, as you can see, all the words in white are Maharishi Patanjali's words, the yam, niyam, asan, pranayam, pratyahar, dharana, and dhyan. But in Acharya Hariputra Suri's case, the terms that are used as mitra, bala, ditra, the sthira, kanta, prabha, and para. Para being the ultimate highest level of final steps. So let's just go through the step that we talked about. Yam. These are the ethical, moral imperatives. And when you read this, ahimsa, satya, asteya, brahmacharya, aparigraha, these are 100% identical to anuvrats that have been given to Jains. These are the foundational things an average Jain is expected to follow. And again, even though Patanjali called it Mahavratam, Jainism called it Pranuvratam, the important point of all of that is it's a foundation. And it becomes so critical throughout this Swadhyaya in last 3 months, 4 months. A lot of questions would come up later in the Swadhyaya and say, what about this? And well, would this happen? Well, and the easy answer that actually came through those discussions was a person who has actually gone through yams, a person who actually practices ahimsa and all the 5 line items that are here, it's less likely they're going to pursue, let's say, particular type of asana or particular type of pranayam so they can look beautiful and then they will have social status. It's more likely that that person is already on the journey to remove their kashais, remove their vices, the anger, ego, deceit, and greed. So ahimsa, non-violence. Ahimsa is not limited to just killing little bugs. Obviously, it's extremely crucial that we don't and find every which way. And even if we have to kill a bug, it comes from a place of deep compassion. If you have to kill that mosquito that's about to bite you, you need to start from real sadness, real compassion for that mosquito. You may have to kill it because it harm you, or it can have infestation could start. All of those could be real. There are reasons to do what we do, but your heart, your mind is fully immersed in the idea of compassion, non-violence. This is who I am. This is my true nature. It's in everything I do, the words I choose, how I interact with others. Everything starts, thoughts, speech, and actions. Everything is tied together in unison, and it's only so the tool of trade, it becomes ahimsa. You only operate with ahimsa. Whether your boss is yelling at you and you're about to yell back at your boss, it still comes from ahimsa, and your responses are not reactive, they are responsive. You actually have thought through, you are operating out of ahimsa, and you're only addressing the issue that's at hand. Satya is another very, very specific piece. Calling a blind guy you are a blind guy is not what is meant here. This is about Satya that is actually, when I have all choices to make and there is a high road to take, a hard road to take, because a lot of times the high road actually has consequences that are not materially rewarding. You materially lose a lot of stuff when you actually have to take the high road, walk away from a job, give up on some things that you dearly cared about. But because it was the right thing to do, there was integrity behind it. That's something you had to stand behind. That's what's meant here by Satya. Now, when you combine Satya with ahimsa, it's very unlikely you're going to call a blind guy a blind guy. You're just going to be there just helping this person. If there's any capacity you have available, you'll only be helping that person. It's not about just throwing pounding your chest and say, I am practicing Satya and you are a blind guy, so I'm going to call you a blind guy. It won't go there. You would think about a true ahimsa in that situation and say, how will I harm this individual by the speech that I would have? And I have full integrity. And you would actually do that falls within the framework of ahimsa and Satya. Asteya, non-stealing. I mean, in a literal sense, most all of us are not criminals. Okay, most all of us don't think of taking people's stuff, and this is about subconsciously taking somebody's pride away. Words that we speak that actually make somebody feel less. Overusing stuff. We need 2 cups of water to clean something. I would let the water run for next 15 minutes while I clean everything else. This is taking things away. Our generation, if we waste everything as we continue to do, we are stealing it from the next generation. Yeah, one of the great example Praveen uncle uses is about taxes. I love that example mainly because uh, we are extremely smart and we have this buddhi that says, I have figured this out. Next tax return I file, I know what exceptions I can make. And if I do this way, goodwill ni receipt no sidha $500 lakhi dis to mana sidhu eno deduction mali jase. Now, what we don't realize if we do that, I hope nobody does that, but if anybody is doing that, uh, you're essentially not stealing from IRS. You're stealing from everybody in the country, everybody in the society. And then when somebody confronts us with that, we would say, hey, wait a minute, there's so many, my tax money doesn't go in the right places where I go, and the government doesn't do everything they need to do. So it's justified. We find ways to justify our ability to steal. Well, the reality is, if you're Mahatma Gandhi, be Mahatma Gandhi. He was against the idea of taxes on salt, but he made a proclamation that, hey, I'm going to go to Dandi. Dandi is the city, and I'm going to make salt, and I will break the law. I will not pay taxes for taking that salt. So we have the ability to go to IRS and say, your tax practices are wrong. This year, I'm not going to file my tax return. And if you throw me in jail, it's completely fine. So anyway, I don't want to deliver this point. The asteya is much deeper. Just because I did not steal somebody's car and didn't take somebody's pencil, it's not limited there. Think of how we live and how much we are taking away from the others in the process of just wanting to survive. And be kind. Brahmacharya. So Brahma Achar, whatever takes us towards Brahma, Brahma meaning the universal consciousness. I know in the literal sense, we always talk about chastity and marital fidelity. There's also a very deep understanding of, when you are engaged in this bodily activities, your indriyas, your senses are at the highest levels of agitation. They're far away from any kind of spirituality. So controlling some of those things, some of those thoughts are extremely important. But brahmacharya actually goes well beyond just that. It's the achar. Achar means your activities, your behaviors. Are they truly taking you towards Brahma? So brahmacharya, it also has much more depth. The next one is aparigraha. Now, I mean, life in US, the principle behind life in US, and I can speak for me, is just in case management. I'll give you an example. 25 years ago, we were redoing the bathroom in our house, and I bought a bunch of tools because I was doing it myself. I had a fancy tile cutter, right? And this tile cutter stayed with me for a very long time. I have no line of sight to do any other bathroom remodeling or tiling at this point. But you know what? It still sits in my house. And it's just in case. Just in case. We have so many things that we possess just in case. And that also comes from the fears. Fears that I might need it. And if I need it, what will I do about it? We can't let anything go. And when we were talking about aparigraha in our swadhyaya, Aarti Auntie had one of the examples of Janak Raja, and where when his palace was burning, and he had not even had a wrinkle on his face, he was completely content, and he was watching this as it was never mine. Now, when I think of aparigraha, the first thing we need to have is, whether you can't get over the idea of just in case, and you have your justifications for not getting over that, you possess a lot more, but any sathe attachments ketlu je, how deeply attached are you? The fancy table piece you bought from some corner of the world, the absolutely beautiful piece that nobody could have, and you were so proud of owning that, and somebody's little kid comes in and breaks it. How much breakage happens internal to your senses? How upset, how unhappy are you? That's the measure of parigraha. So attachment is really, and it drove so deeply it drove home so deeply for me when Aarti and TV talked about that it's like, one of the things was I used to have a particular spot in the house. That's the only spot where a meat set. And I had to start practicing to say, why am I so attached to this spot? I had that Sheldon's chair. Those who know the sitcom, I had to move away from that mindset. I have these inherent preferences I'm so stuck in that's the only way it can happen. And I'm attached to those preferences. If you're truly practicing aparigraha, start questioning some of those deep preferences you have, the material preferences largely. I'm not talking about, hey, I have a preference to do meditation every 20, at least 20 minutes every day. That preference is actually helping you. But just having to sit on that right spot of the house, that preference is just driving more parigraha. So aparigraha is extremely subtle. All of these things are extremely subtle, but the point of yam is, if you look at this in more holistic way, spiritualistic way, thinking of how pure you are, then you would actually make decisions. Those memories that you're working with, you will cleanse those memories and start moving towards that sattvic side of the world. So when I go to this next slide, Jainism puts immense emphasis on the word. This is also, even though it's not listed as an individual line item in Maharishi Patanjali's piece, Jainism actually uses that as a tap. The idea here is, if I have Vinay, and imagine having Vinay for everything that's in the world. I'm talking about Jiva and Ajiva, live and dead, the material things as well as living things. If I have 100% reverence for them, respect for them, it is very shallow world, not everything translates well. Reverence gets closer to Vinay. If I have that humbleness about being in front of those things, would I be causing any violence with that person? If I respect somebody, it's nearly impossible for me to become hinsa, which is violent with that person. Satya, will I lie to them? Will I manipulate them? Will I do things that are only self-serving if I truly have reverence for this other person? Will I take anything from them, knowingly or unknowingly? Obviously, Mara Achar, JBSA, with this person I have Vinay for, still it's going to be more towards remaining on the spiritual side of things. And aparigraha, obviously, you're not going to have parigraha against that person. Yeah, you may get attached, and there's enough writing about getting attached, but even getting attached is also a big thing. So I'll give you a story. I think Ishita covered this in the Swadhyay. So one time, Ram Bhagwan, Sita Mata, and Hanumanji were walking, going somewhere, and Hanumanji, Ram Bhagwan kept on looking at Hanumanji every so many minutes. He would look at Hanumanji. Sitaji was feeling, she's feeling like I'm his wife. And instead of seeing me and looking at me, why is he continuously paying attention to Hanuman? So at some point, she gave in and just flat out asked, saying, why are you doing that? I'm your wife, and that's Hanumanji. And so Ram Bhagwan, actually, he pulled a hair out of Hanumanji's head and then put that hair next to Sitaji's ears. And the hair had this sound, Ram, 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 Ram. And then Ram Bhagwan explained, he said, Hanuman sees me as I am Ram's, and you're seeing me as Ram is mine. There's a very distinct idea about parigraha. Kyare parigraha, that attachment becomes so deep that we start become possessive. So anyway, just a sample to work from. The second step is niyam. And again, if you look at these pieces, okay, shauch is the cleanliness of mind, speech, and body. It's are you clean? And again, everything I've said about yum actually encapsulates and or works hand in hand with these pieces. The one that I really care most about is santosh. Contentment is extremely hard. And whether karma philosophy, good and bad karmas, situations changing, the idea of santosh, if I wish I would have learned this idea several years ago, that situations will continuously change. Can I be the constant in those changing circumstances? Do I have ultimate utterance or utter acceptance of what's to come, good, bad, or different? And if I would have had that, developed that innate capability within myself, I wouldn't be worried about, oh, my college will close, I'll be so far behind, I can't go to school for next 6 months, and my world will end, and everything's really bad. Some of those good and bad things that come, I will just be looking at a situation, what else can I do about it? Without getting agitated. So santosh is extremely deep, and it's very hard to achieve. This is not about I have enough money, I'm going to stop. That's great. It's santosh too, but everything that changes, are you able to develop abhay? Abhay is the fearlessness concept. I guess I can't translate it as well from the scriptures to English, but the idea of not having those fears, call it self-confidence, self-reliance, self-capability. You have so much reliance on your self-capability that you are not worried. You expect situations to change, you expect situations to get bad and good both. You're still the same person. Then Tap is really the penance. When it comes down to it, it's just training. Some of this doesn't come easy for most of us. Okay, this is great ideas, but this doesn't naturally happen for us. And I'll cover some taps that Jainism has here the next few minutes. But it's a discipline, right? You work to get there. Then Swadhyay, Jainism puts it as a tap. It's a penance. Introspection is really swa adhyay. Swa is self, and adhyay obviously is a study and understanding yourself. So it's a great thing that Praveen Uncle took so much time and patience to go through the same repeated questions we asked him several hours at a time. But did we actually walk out and actually looked at those things and say, is this changing my life? How does this change me as I am now that I know? And if it's changing me, is it changing me for the good or the bad? It's swadhyaya is, you can be aided by the scholarly knowledge, but just listening to it for an hour and forgetting as you leave doesn't mean anything. If you listen to it and actually studied how it affected you, then it's a true swadhyaya. And Ishwar Pranidhan. So Maharishi Patanjali knew that just being good is fine. But don't forget, you're doing this for finding the divine. Your divine may be Jesus Christ. Your divine may be Brahma. Or your divine could be Nirvana in Buddhism context. But are you completely committed to that step? Are you completely doing those steps? So just a bit of a parallel to what we just talked about. So external austerities. In the left-hand side diagram is part of some of the karma philosophies we explained. But the idea is at any moment in time, we have X amount of karmas on us. But if you remain peaceful in any changing circumstance, in this case, somebody actually is about to yell at you. You're able to maintain that peaceful posture, peaceful mental capacity. And it's less likely you're going to gain any new karmas. But The austerity, the purpose of austerity, and the reason why that diagram is to the left-hand side of this slide is everything we do needs to be about removing kashayas, finding that mental peace, remaining in that state, the unagitated chitta. So anshan, obviously fasting, little bit at a time, you start learning and you actually get better. And you realize that food is not driving you. It is a distraction. It can be a distraction. You just need nourishment. You don't need specific things. Alpahar unodari, this is all about, ahar is food. Unodari it's about stomach and all that. But it also, there's something called bhav unodari. Am I indulging in senses so much? So if I'm thinking of doing eating something, I would eat just a little less. Ichha Nirodh and Vritti Sankshep. This is about possessions, limitations of possessions in its literal sense. But then Ichha Nirodh is, I want more. I have these 15 pairs of different polo shirts, but that particular color I don't have. I need to have that. Rasatyag, my weakness is Udipino Doso. And guess what? Nature said, you can keep craving Udipino Doso, but I'm not letting you leave your house. So it's like a naturally imposed Rasatyag on me. I cannot go, I drive by Udupi now. They actually have a sign outside that, hey, you can buy this and take it with you. You don't have to come be exposed to COVID. But I'm still fearful enough that two things. One, that rava dosa will not taste right if I took it as such. And when I brought it home, by the time that it'll be just so mushy, squishy that it would not have the taste that I'm looking for. So this is stuff that you get fettered with. You get stuck in it. Kaya Klesh, again, this is about asan. This is about, voluntarily putting yourself in certain situation. You actually do things to your body. And the idea is you train yourself, the body does not remain a distraction. And when you look at the Sanlinta, this is where it begins. This is where you actually start driving your senses from outward to inward. You start thinking, you become stable, you go into stable posture, and then you actually stop this influences of senses that actually affect us. And there are other mechanisms, there are things that we do actually can get some of this. So beyond just pure austerities, this is where it can go. Now, Parangal puts a lot more emphasis on the internal austerities. Because really the purpose of all the external austerities that we talked about is to build the internal capacity, that mental capacity to do things. Prayashchit, this is the repentance for bad deeds. This is about, I was alcoholic yesterday, I beat up my family, I was abusive, all that stuff. And then in the morning, I felt really guilty and say, I would never do that again. And then next weekend comes and friends say, hey, it's just a night of poker, let's drink a little more. And you're right back to square one, you come home and you're right back to the same guy. So yeah, feeling sorrow, feeling sad, Paschatap versus Prayashchit, there's a big distinction. Paschatap karvo is that momentary feeling bad. Prayashchit says, it will never happen again. I have committed to this. It will not happen. And we talked about Vinay earlier, so I won't cover that here. Humility is really the foundation of Jainism. You can't practice anything. This is for me. If I can't practice anything else, if I can remind myself, I'm but a, alpa shrutam shrutam, nanama nanu drop chu, universe nu. I'm just a very little drop in this universe, and every living being in this world, I should have humility for, because it's the same universal consciousness that prevails. Same thing makes that thing alive, and same thing that keeps me alive. If I can connect at that level, then I will be full of Vinay. My humility will always prevail. Swadhyaya, we talked about that. Dhyana. Dhyana is actually very interesting about Dhyana is the Patanjali, Maharishi Patanjali actually uses Dhyan as a step. Jainism actually takes Dhyan as a focus of mind. Wherever the focus could be in a very bad thing. But Dhyan in the context here is, especially when you're doing austerities and you think of that dhyan is about spiritual progress. It's dharma dhyan nahi વાત છે. It's about knowing what your pure self is and actually meditating on that. That's what's described here. And Kayotsarg this is a very crucial step that many of us have very hard time to do, is to realize that our body is just merely a tool. Extremely important tool, need to take care of it, do everything that you need to. It does not become a distraction. Yet, have a complete understanding, complete surrender to the idea that my soul is separate from the body. The Kayotsarg is pretty, and again, there's a Shramani Malay Pragnaji, she talks about Kayotsarg quite a bit. So if you're going to her side, you know about this. This is in the Digambar tradition. These are the 10 virtues of Jains, and you look at these pieces here: forgiveness, modesty, straightforwardness, contentment, truth, self-restraint, austerity, renunciation, non-attachment, and sorry, this is covered here. I didn't realize it. And celibacy. This is brahmacharya. So there are very much good number of parallels. And again, I did a lot of work. My reading came from Swami Vivekananda's actual interpretation of Maharishi Patanjali. But he actually talks about which path you take is less important as long as you are committed to a path. Asan, Maharishi Patanjali didn't give any particular asan in the book. He had no particular asan listed, but he made very strong emphasis that whole idea of distraction that can come from the body needs to be eliminated. Now, there are a lot of guidelines. You should be able to sit in a posture for 3.5 hours and not feel pain. So, and not let that distract your dhyan. So, for one to achieve that level, you have to have these yogic practices. All the great things we just saw from Jyoti Ben, and she teaches several classes. Subhash Mittal is another person in the area that does a lot of that work. But they tell us how several asanas can help. And while Maharishi Patanjali did not write anything, the Bhashya, which is a commentary that was written by, there's debates about among scholars whether Vyasa Muni wrote the Bhashya or Maharishi Patanjali himself wrote it. In the Bhashya, they've listed about 12 of these asanas. Now, one piece I would say that I noticed, okay, I normally pray in the Vajrasana posture. And it works pretty well for me. Back remains erect and straight and all, that's very good. And I'm able to focus on other things and go outside of the distraction of my body. But I've tried to see why all of the Jain statues are either in Kayotsarg Mudra or Padmasana Mudra. And most all of them, I mean, of course, Mahaswami Bhagwan achieved the Keval Jnana, I'm trying to remember the word, go. Anyway, I'll get it at some point. But anyway, I tried sitting in the Padmasana posture. And what I realized as an engineer in me is the moment arm of my body, when it's on a stable surface in the surface area that's touching the floor, it increases vastly if you are actually in Padmasana. So going from Sukhasana, which is a normal Palati, normal sitting pose that we have, the touch points to the surface are very few. When you go to Padmasana, the entire length of your thighs, part of your knees, one side of your knees, and your lower seating portion, all of that is in complete contact with the surface. So although we haven't trained our muscles to do this, I want to believe, and this is just a philosophy, that if you can actually practice sitting in Padmasana, it probably is the best posture. And that's why we see boatload of Jain statues that are actually in the Padmasana posture. Buddhism, obviously. So anyway, just this, please don't take this. This is, I don't have copyright. There could be copyright issues here, but I brought this in just so you know. So if you look at the Sukhasana to the right, which is where we most of the time sit, Then Siddhasana increases that surface area. If you go to Padmasana, then it's completely flat, as I said. Sinhasana and Bhadrasana are other two postures. Please don't take this as a scholarly advice that Padmasana is better than the other. This is just a thought. I haven't done enough research on this to say Padmasana actually increases your ability to meditate more. I'm just connecting some dots with what I'm seeing. So pranayam, let's just go to pranayam, right? Pranayam, so we tend to treat entire idea of pranayam as breathing techniques. Maharishi Patanjali said, pran, the breath is the manifestation of pran. So universal consciousness manifests itself using pran, which is what makes us alive. When that stops, we're dead. So look at it in that context. We tend to go into this mechanical practice of asana and pranayam, and this is also one of those. There's a particular chapter where Maharishi Patanjali puts a lot of warning. As you start doing these things, you're going to gain these capabilities. But yogi can get completely distracted and never really reach that spirituality that he was looking for. And he can get actually more deeply engrossed in the material aspect. Because yogi will and start experiencing certain things as the yogi goes through all these steps. So pranayama and asana is very common for a lot of us. And we tend to think that, oh, anathimari hardly conditions are either. I'm not arguing any of that. But if you're doing this for spirituality and you're actually meditating, doing pranayama, try and connect with the idea of pran itself, and say, you know what? So if you look at this diagram, and I shamelessly stole this from Jyoti Ben, she actually gave a very deep understanding of pranayama at the Swadhyaya. So if you ever want to learn anything, you can call her and she can give you a lot of wisdom in that space. But if you look at the idea of breathing is when you inhale, let's say the cycle of breathing begins, inhale is called purak. Now you're pulling air into your system. Once the inhalation is complete, and you have your kumbh, which is the body cavity. Kumbh normally is like a ghado, the pot, is when it's full, you hold the breath. That's kumbhak. And then when you exhale completely. And Jyoti Ben uses the term diaphragmatic breathing. And again, if you want to know more, she knows a lot more. Your diaphragm, actually your stomach actually lets all of the air out, right? And then you hold that's the shunya. And so shunya, so these are different steps. The belief is in the shunyak state. You try to take your focus into the pran itself, that consciousness itself, which is where you start making the connections. And there's lots of pranayam techniques. A lot of them have a lot of physiological benefits, an immense amount of benefits, and it's indisputable that they do exist. But that physiological benefit, if you get past that, pranayam should also be practiced to connect with that universal consciousness. So we just went through the 4 steps, right? This is the do's. These are the things you can do, work towards. Now we're going to the next 4 steps. This is all internal steps. So pratyahar. Pratyahar is the first real, this is now you're migrating inward. And this is really, we talked about the stimuli. Stimuli kind of feed us, right? The man gets fed by the stimuli from the external stimuli. How do you go opposite to that? Pratyahar. How do you stop feeding from that and start looking inwardly and be fed by that? This is where the easiest way to describe this is the water is flowing on that picture in all directions. You start taming that water to go in certain directions. Man is all over the map. Now you're working to draw man out from the outside stimuli to the inward stimuli. You're starting your first step. Just imagine you're going to Derasa, or temple. You're just walking up to the temple, and you're still hearing all these noises. As you start walking towards closer to God, at some point you stop looking at all the traffic. All the other noises, distractions start going away. Your senses, when you close your eyes, now you're not seeing anything. So that sense actually terminates. You start doing your mantra chantings. I mean, you're chanting mantras from your within yourself. You're not listening to the person talking to you right next to you. So the distractions start going away. So pratyahar is like the first step towards going towards the universal consciousness. The dharana is, so now you're standing in front of Bhagwan, right? Bhagwan is in your mind. Dhar means hold. You're holding this thought. There's a particular type of meditation called tratak. And tratak meditation gives you this little light that you focus on for several minutes, and then you contemplate just on the light for so many minutes that after you remove the light, you close your eyes, all you see is that light. And so in my example here, all you are seeing is Mahavir Bhagwan's face, Mahavir Bhagwan's statue. Your dharana is to your divine, whether if it's Vishnu Bhagwan, Mahavir Bhagwan, whatever that, alamban is a word, whatever that object you picked, you are focused on that object. And there's a lot more depth. Again, Ketan Bhai did a lot of work on dharana, and he had a pretty good session with us last week, talking through this last 2 weeks. Then comes Dhyan. Dhyan is where now everything has the idea of time and space starts disappearing. You are praying to Bhagwan so much, you're so connected to God in this situation, to the object of your meditation, that you lose the sense of time and space. And a bad example, a materialistic example of that is going to watch a movie. When the movie starts, your pratyahar is, we're going to this movie theater and I'm going to start looking at this, this is the right movie to watch, and I'm experiencing the nice little cushy chair, all that type of stuff. And then, so all these other senses are fully active, right? And then the movie starts, and at some point, you get so deep into the movie that you lose the time, how much time has passed, and you forget that you're sitting in a movie theater, if the movie is really good, right? But at the other way to describe the dhyan, that transition is like trying to go to sleep. You can have a nice cushion, turn off the lights, feel great that you are making every conscious effort, but you can never tell what moment in time you're actually going to fall asleep. That's where the dhyan migration happens. So you may have a 20 minutes of dedicated time in your day and you're actually meditating. You may start out with pratyahar, then dharana, and at some point, even if it happens for 30 seconds of that 20 minutes, you may actually go into dhyan. And now when you start realizing that time passes in your original percent, you open your eyes and it's 35 minutes, you realize that you lost the time and space in that process. You may actually have gone into the state of dhyan. And I'll touch on just Jainism concept here. So Jainism actually, as I said, doesn't go through these individual steps. Jainism describes this 4 types of dhyans. This is really the 4 states of mind is what they're categorized. So just mere idea that you're engaged in an idea, your mind is engaged, focused on a particular type of idea. Jainism uses that as a generic term, dhyan, but then there is a qualifier. There's artha dhyan, raudra dhyan, dharma dhyan, and shukla dhyan. So artha dhyan, so most all of us are on the left-hand side of the left two line items that you see there, artha dhyan and raudra dhyan. Artha dhyan at a gross level is a feeling of inferiority. You're striving for something you don't have. Your health is not quite where you want it. There's those painful experiences, you're just not satisfied. You're just turned off. and somebody insults you and it hurts you so much that, you know what, the guy has a bigger house, or he has better degree, or he's bigger than me, whatever those reasons are, you feel this pain. But Raudra Dhyan is like, you know what, now right after that we go into say, I'm going to show that guy. I will beat him at his game. I'm so good, I can do this. You know, that's where the feeling of superiority triggers. And there's also the malice stuff, like I can cheat my way through this stuff because I'm smarter than the other guy. That feeling of superiority that triggers, that's also tied to Raudra Dhyan. But when people start falling out of this vicious cycle of Artha Dhyan and Raudra Dhyan, they start realizing that my true nature is of compassion, positivity, constructive, productive behaviors, mindsets, which is where the true nature comes. Vaktu Sahava Dhammut literally means it's the intrinsic nature of a soul. It's the like flowers' intrinsic nature is to give fragrance. You can crush it into pieces, you can pluck it off, you can do anything with it. Only thing it knows or does is spread fragrance. So when you realize your soul also has its own traits, and you become one with that, and you start contemplating that, focusing on those traits, that's Dharma Dhyan. And in Maharishi Patanjali's context, when you start from this dungeon of darkness and you start to the open door where the sattvic behaviors are, which is when the door completely opens, you could potentially achieve this Shukla Dhyan. Now, Hemchandracharya, you know, in his Yog Shastra, actually talks about chapter 12. It spends a good bit of time. The Shukla Dhyan is pretty hard to achieve for a layman. It even goes as far as knowing about 14 Purvas and all. The last piece, and then Samadhi. Samadhi for Maharishi Patanjali, that's the last step. It's at this point, Maharishi Swami Bhagwan nu dhyan karta karta, now Maharishi Swami Bhagwan ji sathe ek thai gaya. You become one with that object. What it means here is that universal consciousness that may have prevailed in Maharishi Swami Bhagwan, I'm connected to that now completely. I've lost the time, space, and I-ness. My ahankar is gone. I don't remember who I am because I've become one with what object I was meditating on. So Samadhi is really that state where you actually find that ultimate dhyan. It's somewhat analogous to the Shukla Dhyan, but again, scholars will probably get differently. But it gets, because Maharishi Patanjali put that as the last step, I think it may have relevance to that. Maharishi Patanjali also talks about combining these three things. If you look at the picture on the top, this girl's focusing on this flower, right? She's in the state of dharana, and all three things are prevailing right now. The perceiver, which is the girl, perceived, which is the flower, and the act of perceiving. She's consciously making an attempt to perceive. Dhyan is when the perceiver starts to get fused with the perceived. And you start continuous flow of what this rose is about. And then when Samadhi happens, the perceiver, the perceived are fused. There is no real act of perceiving remains. So it's a non-dual absorption that happens. And again, Maharishi Patanjali talks about miracles, and there's good number of sutras in the book are actually tied to miracles you can perform. Right? We don't have enough time for me to explain how he has described it, but it's so logical for somebody world of science. I'm able to connect to that. So when you do all three of these together, you get to the state of Sanyam. And then Sanyam actually, you know, is where some of this, you know, you lost the time, space, and the I-ness, the ahankar disappears. And Jainism, you know, then Kaivalya is achieved once you achieve Samadhi. And once you learn that idea practices of Samadhi, Kaivalya is achieved. Again, this is the Jainism will talk about Keval Jnana. This is absolute true consciousness. You have achieved, you have connected to the Purush in Maharishi Patanjali's context. And Prakriti, which is the nature, all the agitations are completely gone. And you have achieved the divine. So this is, you look at that entire diagram, the right-hand side is completely gone. All that prevails is the consciousness. So for laymen like us, at that state, whether you achieve that state or not, this is what we need ourselves. So we are told in all circumstances. This picture appeals to me a lot, and you've probably seen this me many times, and me showing this in my presentations. Is this idea that Mahavishnu Bhagwan has both types of circumstances, being praised by people and being burned by people. And when you look at his face, he has just complete humility. So in the changing circumstances, he is the constant. And Acharya Hemchandra Acharya in the book, he actually talks about, for people like us who don't know what moksha can be, what Keval Gnan can be, whether I'll achieve it or not, and if there's no prize, I don't want to try, which is pramad, which is laziness. Acharya Premchandra Acharya basically says this: whether salvation is there or not, the absolute bliss which is experienced in Shukla Dhyan cannot be surpassed in the least by the pleasurable things of. So this is my last slide, and Ritesh, I took a little longer than we thought, but I'm just wrapping up here. This is how Swami Vivekananda wraps up the Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. Nature's task is done. This unselfish task which our sweet nurse nature had imposed upon herself. He respects the nature so much. The nature itself wants to find the consciousness. As it were, she gently took the self-forgetting soul by the hand, us, and then showed him all the experiences in the universe, all the life cycles, all the stuff, all the craziness, all manifestations, bringing him higher and higher through various bodies till his glory came back and he remembered his own nature. Then the kind mother went back the way she came for others who have also lost their way in the trackless desert of life. This whole bunch of souls that actually are struggling. And thus she's working without beginning and without end. And thus, through pleasure and pain, through good and evil, the infinite rivers of soul is flowing into the ocean of perfection of self-realization. Glory unto those who have realized their own nature. May their blessings be on all of us. Again, that's all I have. I also have this slide that I've included. If we don't have time, this is the why Swami Vivekananda was very well received at the World Religion Conference in the late 1800s, because this is where he started, and the entire audience has stood up and applauded, because there were 200 plus representatives from different religious sects that were at present in Chicago. And he basically said each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest this divinity within by controlling nature, external and internal. Do this by work or worship or mental discipline or philosophy, by one or more or all of these, and be free. This is the whole of religion. Doctrines or dogmas or rituals or books or temples or forms are but secondary details.
Right, that's very great.
This is the last thing. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Amit Bhai. And I have one request. You can share your slides with the members. I don't know if you have any reservation on that. If you can share that.
Yeah, I will share a version of this that can be. So I always get stuck on copyright some of the images, but I'll make sure that that actually has most of the material in it. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So thank you so much for putting so much time and energy behind these discourses. And તમારી લેંગ્વેજ એટલી સિમ્પલ છે, સાંભળવા અને સમજવામાં બહુ જ હેલ્પ કરે છે. So looking forward for more sessions from you. So let's have a big round of applause for Amit Bhai.
Thank you.
Now moving to announcement section. I think someone is mute, so if you can mute, I don't hear any echo there. Okay. So JSCNC deeply saddened by the tragic events happening around us. I'm talking about Black Lives Matter, and we have shared what is JSCNC and what is our stand about this particular matter in the last meeting. After that, we took one more step towards solving the bigger question, which is what we can do about it and how can we help our community on that. So committee has invited Hetali Lodaya, who is actively involved and working towards this issue in one of our committee meetings, along with scholars like Mahesh Bhai Waria. So let me ask Hetali to share more thoughts around this, next steps with us. So over to you, Hetali.
Hello?
Hetali, you are on mute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Jayinanda, everybody. This is Hitali, and I just want to introduce really quickly something that you'll see more from me and from the EC over the next couple of weeks and months. So as Ritesh Bhai said, obviously this discussion has been in the news a lot more over the past couple weeks and months with the deaths of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor and the subsequent protests and police violence that has occurred across the country. And for me and for a lot of other people that are my peers, we've felt that something that it's important for us to do personally and something that we can do to address this issue is to help bring this conversation to our Jain Sanghs and our Jain communities and help learn and speak and discuss together as a community about how we can be learning more about racism and discrimination, learning more about what we as individuals can and should be doing. You know, what does Jainism tell us about how we should be acting and thinking about our behaviors, and what we can do as a whole community, what actions that we can take. So we're hoping, just as we do lectures on different topics at this monthly meeting, we're hoping to do some over the next several months on these topics. And what I would really love your help and input on is, what do you want to know about these issues? So everyone here is coming from a different background and a different place of understanding. You know, whether you went to school in the US or not, or depending on the kind of work you do, you may have a different understanding of issues of race and discrimination, and you may have different questions about what's been going on over the past couple months. And so to better inform the conversations that we have as a community, we're going to be sending out a quick survey by email that will allow you to mention, you know, these are the things I want to learn more about, these are the questions that I have, and I really, really encourage you to be as specific as possible, because it'll help us make sure that that content is helpful to everyone. And the survey will be anonymous. If you don't want to put your name on it, if you want to, you can as well. But so that will go out by email, and it'll help inform the conversations that we have down the road. So I really, in advance, thank you and appreciate your time in filling that out and giving some input there. And I'm happy to answer questions if anyone has them. But otherwise, you can send them to the committee and they can get them to me. So, Jayinanda.
Excellent, Ethan. So thank you so much for taking lead on this. And we can send this form, as you mentioned, and let's see, you know, what best we can do on this one. Moving to the next announcement.
Just a couple of quick comments about our Jain understanding of the issues. આજે આપણે સવારના we sang the મૈત્રી ભાવનું, તો એમાં આપણે સર્વ જીવોને આખા સકલ વિશ્વમાં મૈત્રી ભાવ છે. અને સકલ વિશ્વમાં એટલે આપણે બધા લોકો સાથે મૈત્રી ભાવની એમાં પ્રેરણા આપે છે. So that's one thing. પછી આજે બીજું જે આપણે શ્રીમદનું ગાયેલું, એમાં એક લાઈન આવે છે, સર્વાત્માત્મા સમદ્રષ્ટિ દો. સર્વ આત્મામાં, પછી એમાં એવો ભેદભાવ નથી કે બ્લેક છે, વ્હાઇટ છે, કે એ પશુ છે, કે પ્રાણી છે, કે હ્યુમન બિંગ છે. આપણે સર્વ આત્મા જેમાં માનતા હોય બધા તરફ સમદ્રષ્ટિનો ભાવને આપણને પ્રોત્સાહન કરવા માટે આપ્યું છે. અને third point I want to mention is, આજનું જે યોગ દ્રષ્ટિનું અમિતનું જે લેક્ચર હતું, એમાં he emphasized વિનય ભાવ. આપણો જે વિનય ભાવ છે એ દરેક વસ્તુમાં, આપણા યમના દરેક નિયમોમાં, આપણા 5 મહાવ્રતમાં, બધામાં જે વિનય આવે છે એ પણ અહીંયા એપ્લાય થશે. એટલે એઝ એ જૈન સેન્ટર and as individuals of the Jain Center, આપણે આ માટે પ્રશ્ન માટે ઘણો જ વિચાર કરવાનો છે અને જે રીતના હેતાલીએ સર્વે માટે કીધું છે એમાં ચોક્કસ તમે પ્રોત્સાહન આપો છો અને પાર્ટ લેજો. થેન્ક યુ.
Very well said, my uncle. So moving to the next announcement, considering the health and safety of our community, Mahavir Jayanti and camp, I'm talking about the physical camp gathering, has been cancelled for this year. So committee is working on the virtual options to celebrate Paryushan and also for Camp Lalit. So I'm also in talk with other Jain centers where we are exploring the possibility of shared pravachans. So let's see how that will work out. But expect something in next week or two regarding Paryushan and the Paryushan planner. Next announcement is about e-souvenir. I'm really excited to share that we have received a lot of good responses from members. Thank you all for giving your contribution in this one. This is once in a lifetime opportunity and today is the last date to submit your content. So please do so if not done yet. If any question, reach out to any of the subcommittee members. We'll be happy to answer. Next is about JAP volunteers. So the second batch of JAP volunteers have served community and helped HSNC preparing meals. So let's have a round of applause for following JAP members for their wonderful gesture and time. So I would like to recognize Bhairav Shah, Dennis Lalan, Hina Mehta, Kalpesh Parekh, Pratyush Mehta, and Sejal Shah. So let's have a round of applause for them for their contribution. Next is about JSCNC digital updates. So we have received a lot of responses from our social media teams and happy to see that, our youth want to help us, willing to, be part of it. So we have created the volunteer squad and trying to engage as much as youth we can. So whoever has participated, whoever is, sent their nominations, expect something from committee in next few days. Next is about Chromebook project. We have collected exactly 2,500 in donations for this cause. So thank you all the donors. Then JSCNC has added 1,250 to this donation and completing the number which we are the commitment which we needed for this project. So that is 3,750. Now we are in process of finalizing the formalities. So there are a few forms which we need to fill. We need to talk to schools, make sure the requirement matches with the Chromebook requirement which China is offering. So we are in process of, solving that problem and trying to discuss and figuring out what best option we can do in this terms. So that's all with respect to announcements. Now it is time for Vasagaram. So let me hand over to Sejal Ben for that.
Ritesh, I just want to make a quick few comments about Pandit Ji because of our personal experience. If it's just take 1 minute here to do that.
Sorry, Mahesh Bhai, I didn't get you.
I just wanted to make a few comments about Pandit Ji, if I may take just a moment.
Sure. I mean, and also, I know Rajan Bhai wanted to mention, so if you can, go ahead, please.
પંડિત જીને શ્રદ્ધાંજલિ આપવા માટે આપણા બધાનો બહુ જ ભાવ છે અને હું આપણા બધા વતી બોલું છું કે એમને જે આપણા સેન્ટર માટે આપણા ઇન્ડિવિજ્યુઅલ મેમ્બર્સ માટે જે એમને કાર્ય કર્યું છે એનો તો આપણે કોઈ દિવસ આભાર ભૂલી શકશું નહીં. અને ખાસ કરીને એમની જે સરળ ભાષા હતી, એમની રહેવાની રીત કેટલી સરળ હતી, આપણા સેન્ટરમાં કેટલી વખત આવી ગયા છે પણ કઈ જાતનો એમનો ડિમાન્ડ નહીં. આટલું જ્ઞાન છતાં આપણે કોઈ પણ ક્વેશ્ચન પૂછીએ એમના માટે તો એ ક્વેશ્ચન કેટલી વાર આવી ગયો હશે પણ એટલું સરળતાથી જરા પણ અપસેટ થયા વગર એટલું શાંતિથી બધાને પૂરી સમજણ આપતા. અને મને એમનું જે રીતના રમણીકભાઈ વાત કરેલી એમનું એક વાક્ય તો બહુ જ યાદ છે કે એ જ્યારે ડિસ્કોર્સ આપતા હોય ત્યારે કહેતા સમજાયું ભાઈ, અને આપણે બધા હા પાડીએ એટલે પછી કહે પણ નથી સમજાયું, લાવો ફરીથી સમજાવો. He knew exactly what we understood and we did not understand and what he wanted to convey. And he made a very good effort in simple language. He always used Gujarati at our center, but it was beautiful, very understandable. And એમનો આભાર આપણે આખા સેન્ટરની માટે હું વ્યક્ત કરું છું. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Rajan bhai, you want to mention something?
હું પણ એમને સપોર્ટ કરું છું. આ બધાનું જે એક આપણો એમના માટે ડેડિકેશન માટે કરીએ. Thank you.
Ritesh, can I say 1 minute? Ritesh, can I say Mahendra Joshi? Can I say for 30 seconds?
I was looking for Rajan bhai. I don't know if he is unmute or he's speaking. So I just want to make sure he gets the next chance. Then, I'll move to you, Mahendra bhai.
Okay.
Rajan bhai, you can go ahead.
Can you hear me, guys? Sorry.
Yes.
Hey, my apologies, but just quickly wanted to, sort of reaffirm Jyota's comments. But beyond that, I want to really appreciate Praveen Bhai's involvement with Pandit Ji. When he first engaged with him, Pandit Ji was really low on the radar. He was even somewhat financially struggling. And then Praveen Bhai sort of discovered him, raised his visibility, raised his profile, and they regularly started visiting the US and was able to share the knowledge. Prior to that, he was sort of low on the radar, teaching Jainism to people who have newly taken Diksha, Maharaj Sahib, and the young Maharaj Sahib. So when you look at Pandit Ji's discourses, his teaching style, it's very simplistic, at a very basic, simple Gujarati level, because that's where his background was, teaching to young Maharaj Sahib, teaching to people who had taken fresh Diksha. But really, I think what Praveen Bhai did for him and how we all benefited, especially all the centers in the US, I think it's a tremendous accomplishment. That's the statement I wanted to make. Thank you so much. We're definitely going to miss Pandit Ji, and I do agree with Jyota on thinking about dedicating the souvenir, the 40th anniversary souvenir to Pandit Ji. At least give it a consideration. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you, Rajan bhai. Mahendra bhai, you want to mention something?
Yeah. Like I was in Detroit for 45 years, and in 25 years, I never missed Dhirubhai Panditji's lecture, and he has a lot of influence on my Jain knowledge. And I just give him koti vandana to him, and emna shraddhanjali આપું છું. બસ એટલું જ મારે કહેવું છે.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. So, Sejalman, over to you.
Yeah, Jai Jinendra, everyone. Hope everybody is doing good. Thank you for a yoga session by Jyoti Ben and by both. Enjoyed it. So last but not least, we are going to have our Uvasakaram recitation. Thank you, Arav, for waiting patiently in June monthly meeting and today. This is the student who learned Uvasakaram in just 2 days because I had assigned that he has to learn a stuti, and he learned it in 2 days. And he made sure that by now he has perfected that stuti. So it can be an inspiration for all of us. If we put our mind to anything, we can achieve it. So Arav, go ahead with Uvasakaram.
Uvasakaram pasam mannami khamagaramukka. Visahara vissa ninnasam mangal kallana agasam. Visahara fulingamantam kanthithari josayamanu. Tassa gaha roga mari dutta jara jalti upasamam. Chittau dure manto tujpanamo vi bau falo hoi. Natiri yesu vi jiva pavantina dukhato gacham. Tuha samatte ladhe chintamani kappa paya vabhihiye pavanti abhikhena. जीवाय रामरम थाणम यसन्तु महाय स भक्तिभर निभरेण येण तादेव दिज्जबोहिं भवे भवे पास चंद। जय जिनेन्द्र।
Great job, Arav.
Great job. All right. So with that, we reach to end of the monthly meeting. So next month meeting is, all we know that's all about pollution. So thanks again for joining, and please be safe and good in health. Bye bye.
Thank you so much.
Jinendra.
Jai Jinendra. Arshad bhai. Jai bolao tame. Right there. Disconnect.
Dr. Mama ki vishay.
So एक बार जय बोलाओ तमे.
Amit bhai, it was excellent presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
ના સંભળાવ્યું અમને હર્ષદભાઈ પણ યાર તમે જય બોલાઈ. ચાલો જય જિનેન્દ્ર બધાને. ટેક કેર એવરીવન.
Bye. 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 Bye.